Well, good morning. How's everybody doing? I got my coffee this morning. Y'all got what you drinking this morning? What's in the cup this morning? Let me know you guys can hear me and we're good. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Just drop in the chat what you're drinking. Make sure you guys can hear me. Coffee as always. I see that. Can you guys hear me good? All right. Well, I'm going to assume that you hear me good. So we're going to go ahead and get started for the sake of time. I always want to respect everyone's time. And I do have coffee in my cup as always, as well. Today, we are going to be talking about work life balance. I'm going to say balance for now, just because that's what everybody typically talks about. But I like to say work life blend because there's no such thing as balance. We can't really achieve balance. And I'll definitely go into that a little bit today. But let's kind of get moving in this direction. Let me share my screen. I know the last few I've had some issues with tech, but I think I've learned to work all those things out. All right. So, work life balance. Today, I want us to go on a quick journey about um, how can we dismantle the idea of really what is blend versus what is balance. And there's some things about how we can achieve that. So, first off, let's talk about what is work life balance. It is a um, term that was technically developed in the 1970s. Yes. I'm not predating myself, but I'm just saying it was before I was born. In the 1970s, basically, it was a term created to help business owners improve productivity. Like, in hindsight, like, it was a good idea, but there were, like, a whole lot of flaws. But it became basically this catchphrase, and it also was what kinda spun all the policies, programs, and procedures that we see now. But the problem is that really balance is unattainable because you are implying that you're giving only 50% of your life to work and 50% to your personal life. Like, you're only giving half. But the thing is that who really compartmentalizes work and life like that? I don't think anybody really does, especially if like you're a mom, which most of therapists typically are. If you're a woman, not saying all, but if you're a mom, you got your kids, you got work, you got private practice, you got your spouse, if you have one, or a partner, you got all these different things, and you're not compartmentalizing all the different areas of your life. At some point, things kind of get blurred because it's like you're at work, the school calls you because your kid is sick, and then now you got to go pick up the kid. And now all of a sudden you're back home working, but you got the kid. Now, how is that separate? You can't have separate work life balance. So that's why I like to say blend. And I'll tell you what that is here in a second. The other piece that is wrong with this is, remember the 1950s housewife where they stayed home, they were doing all the housely duties and responsibilities. But in the 70s, when they came up with this term, this is where the trouble comes in, because now all of a sudden women in particular, because they made this whole thing a woman's issue. So in the 70s, now you have women working, but yet they're still maintaining the house. They're still maintaining everything that goes on at home. Now, I'm not saying this is all, but a good portion of women are working and like maintaining what's going on at home. And so this becomes a problem specifically for women, not men. The other piece that happens is women, as they're entering the workforce in the 70s, they are focused on their career and they're trying to do their best to reach the top, to be in that Oval Office in the corner somewhere. And it started to become kind of like an issue because then there was the issue of not that I'm just maintaining my house, not that I'm trying to do well at work, but I'm trying to succeed at work, that now I'm not even taking care of myself, the self-care piece, which is part of your work life piece together, the blend. So, what do we call blend? Like what is that? Let's define that. So, blend really refers to the easiest way I can describe it is remember how we all kind of moved into after COVID, we all moved online. And it's kind of like you're on Zoom, you had business up top, everything was good up here, but on the bottom you had on whatever jammies, shorts. So it's like party at the bottom. Or if you're from the 70s, you might remember business in the front, party in the back, talking about that mullet. That's really what work life blend is. It's it's basically creating the space where we are supporting each part of our life 100%. Nothing is separate, nothing is compartmentalized. It's something where we learn to embrace the middle messiness of life, and it's something that nothing neatly fits any distinct place. Like we have to figure out how to weave everything together seamlessly, just kind of go through the ebbs and flows, the harmony in the midst of the chaos, like all of it. So, where does this concept really come from? Because it ain't from the United States. When I was doing my research around this, and there's a great book that I actually found. Balance is BS. I'll kind of give you the full title later, but I have it linked in my website. But in this book, it was kind of the idea of this is where blend comes from, but it also spun about where. So think of like Nordic countries, Sweden, Australia, or Finland, Norway, all of those places, Denmark. These are countries where it's more widely known to have a work life blend. Now, if you do some research, they have better like maternity laws. They have like they leave their kids out in the cold to sleep when they're in the cafe, kind of like hanging out. Like it's craziness. And it's really interesting to see how in this area they are typically more well rounded. In Denmark, in particular, they are considered the happiest place on earth. And partly it's because of all of this. And I'll tell you exactly why later. But if these people are the happiest place because they have figured out how to blend the two pieces together and how to make just life work together. And so here in the United States, we don't talk about that at all. It's always like you got to have balance, and people push like there's balance. And then we get stuck as therapists. A lot of times we're teaching our clients the same thing when we're teaching them something that is unattainable. Okay, so what would be another good example of this? An example would be is kind of like if you have, say, a work trip plan, you're going to go do something specifically for work. But who's to say that you can't take the fam with you and kind of do some things outside of like whatever you're doing for work? That would be a work life blend. That would be a really good way of like getting started. And sometimes it's like kind of like having the daycare in your office, same concept is how are we putting the two or all the pieces to the puzzle together that it just works together. So there's a few problems with, say, work life blend too. It's not all cupcakes and rainbows, but here are some things that kind of come up. So sometimes people are feeling constantly overwhelmed and stressed, and you just feel like that you're drowning in like this never-ending task and responsibilities. And so it makes it harder for someone to do the integration piece when they're feeling kind of in this space. Sometimes they struggle to disconnect from work during the personal time because this is where these are those people that are constantly checking their emails and thinking about clients and doing like all these things when they should be kind of in their personal time. Another one that comes up is experiencing burnout and exhaustion and just feeling like you're running on empty with like no end in sight. And so if you're in this space, how are you really going to blend the two? Because you kind of have to get out of burnout before you can start working in a space from a blended life. The other one is, and I mentioned it before, we are neglecting our personal relationships, our self-care because we are too busy putting everyone else's needs first, and we're essentially running on fumes. And so this is where we're leaning too much on work, but not necessarily on personal life. It's not a really hard thing to achieve, but it's something that you definitely have to be mindful of. So when it comes to being mindful on how do we achieve this particular goal, the first thing is that we are going to look at what is embodiment versus what is mindful embodiment. So like I've got definitions, y'all. So we know that embodiment is like the state of being fully present and connected in your body, your senses, your emotions, your energy. It's like the deep awareness of what is happening in your body and the sense of being grounded in presence, and the embodiment just emphasizes the integration between mind, body, spirit, and then just recognizing that there is that deep connection which supports your physical and your psychological well being. So, that is essentially what is embodiment in a nutshell. So then what is mindfulness? We know we hear a lot about this one. It's really where we are paying attention, we're being deliberate in our attention in the present moment without judgment. Yes, we can observe our body and our thoughts, our feelings, sensations. We can observe those things, but it's a little bit different. It's more like compared to embodiment, it's more like surface level. Like, yeah, I know it's there, but like you're not in the weeds. So, what is really the difference with mindful embodiment? And this is something that I want to start moving forward on teaching, like just therapists in general, so that we can just be better, well rounded therapists. So, the first piece to mindful embodiment is it's not just being aware in the present moment, it's not just the connection, but it's one, how we focus the attention that we have, the awareness that we have. It's like it's like the details, it's like in the details of what you're actually doing and how you're doing it, how you're getting done. It's the details. The second thing is integration. And so this is where we recognize again the connection between physical as well as our psychological well-being. And then we take a step further and really just cultivate how can we get mental clarity, emotional resilience, and accepting of the present moment and experience that we have. It's just like, what is that? The third place on how we can achieve mindful embodiment is really just the application. So, this is where, okay, yes, I'm being mindful with my body and what's going on with it and my thoughts, but this is where we are physically moving. We are actually like doing the yoga, going for the walk. We are engaging in some kind of creative expression. It's like we're like doing it, not just being it, but actually doing it. And so the big difference between mindfulness and embodiment, mindfulness and mindful embodiment is focus, integration, and application. Those are the biggest ones. Some other ways that we can achieve a work life blend is reframing our mindset. So it's understanding that work life blend is possible. It's just that it's going to look different for you than it is going to look for, say, Jane. It's also about making sure you create the time and space for the self awareness around what you're needing. Like, and how are you balancing or not balancing, but how are you looking at your time personally versus your time professionally? Another piece here is changing your physical environment to support your mindset shifts. So, we all know that our physical environment is just a reflection of what is happening upstairs in our brain. And so, if your physical environment is not looking well, I'm going to suggest that you go ahead and clean that up. Cultivating mindfulness. Now, we talked about this already, but this is the piece in addition to the embodiment on how we are reframing where we are. The last spot here is embracing our imperfections. It's like letting go of the pressure to achieve perfection because we know perfection is not real. We know that. But it's about knowing that we can't achieve perfection in our professional or our personal life. And it's really embracing the messiness, the imperfections, the humanness that we are, just kind of like really taking that on, taking that in. The third way that we can work on our work life blend is looking at our values. So, being clear on what are your values. Now, we get a lot, especially coming and going in grad school and coming out of grad school. They tell us, like, this is what you should do, this is how you should do it. But then that puts you automatically in this box. And if we're in the box, we can't operate at 100% for ourselves. And so when we are clear on our values, these our values are helping us operate generally just in life. We also have to understand that our values must align our actions to move forward and to live according to our values. So not just knowing them, but it's actually moving towards it, the alignment piece. Clear values also lead to clear purpose, which leads to clear priorities. We're not compromising our priorities. Like, we learn to know what are high priorities for us and what are low priorities. And then so you figure out when you know that, it makes it easier for you to accomplish what are high priorities for you. Practicing self compassion. This is another good value. So basically, just treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would tell your clients. We are so horrible at telling our clients what they should be doing, how they should do, what it should look like, and then we don't take like our own advice. We are so bad at that. How many people that are here have done that? I know I have. Like, you can tell everyone else what they can or can't do or should be doing, or how to process, how to do anything, but you don't do it yourself. This is the space where I just want you to remember that you are human. So cut yourself some slack, and then just kind of remember to stay present in the here and now. The last little piece on our values is that in each core area of your life, I would encourage you to create a bucket list. Create like just a list that will help you get more aligned with your values and that provide some kind of satisfaction. So, like, whatever that is. Like, for me, it's travel. And one of the things that goes with, say, my business goals is to create financial freedom. Financial freedom actually gives me travel freedom. Like, I would love to see the world, but how are you going to do that when you are, say, connected to everyone else, everything? You're working in your business, but not your business is not working for you. Like, it's a whole lot of things that come with that. The last area that we can do to achieve more work life balance is repurposing kind of like your self care skills, your practices, your knowing the difference between doing versus being. Making self-care a non-negotiable part of your routine, that would be embracing embodiment. So it's really just putting it in action. Because we in theory, there are a lot of things that we do for self-care or practices or emotional regulation or whatever that we do, and it's the same things we need to do to create the work-life blend that we're looking for. The next place to repurpose is learn to acquire and to use skills and traits. Be flexible, delegate, achieve overall quality over quantity. You just want to look at what energy you have versus what is some energy you can like give away. And then like that's the next one is knowing your energy level and prioritizing your activities that nourish your soul, replenish your soul, and helps your energy reserves kind of stay intact. The last of few, so set boundaries. I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys have heard me say that before. Boundaries are not for other people, they are for you. But defining clear boundaries between what is work and personal, but it's also about being flexible in all of that and know when you need to adjust that. Again, let's go back to the example of you're a mom, your kid has to come home sick from school. Now you got to work and manage the kid, being flexible. Understand like what task could be, the difference between is this a last minute request? Can you do that? Can you fit it in? Or is that something that you can hold off and delegate for tomorrow? And I'm pretty sure whatever was happening today would be okay till tomorrow. Another space for repurposing is simplify your life. This one has been probably the biggest thing for me personally is that trying not to be complicated, trying not to like have all these things, all these steps, have this detailed like self-care routine. When I learned to simplify and do what's good for me and just kind of sit in that energy, things changed a whole lot. The last place in repurpose is have multiple sets of friends. Now, I know that sounds a little weird, but we all have our work friends, our work husband, our work wife, our, whatever. And then we have the people that we have in our personal life. Because what happens is that there's always going to be people in your life that you can only talk to certain things about or interact in certain ways about because they kind of just get it and understand. And so this will be the purpose of having multiple sets of people in your life because then you can kind of spread the wealth. You don't feel like a burden because you keep going to the same people about the same stuff all the time. This is kind of like what that is, what that means. Okay, so I'm just going to remind you embodiment is being fully present and connected and actually doing it versus mindfulness. We're just aware and paying attention. So keep that in mind. So, and actually, I went through that and I went through that. And I forgot I put all these slides in here. Okay, so this one is so let's go back to our Nordic countries and in particularly Denmark because the they are the happiest place on earth. However, caveat, they also have the highest suicide rate because people are so obsessed with being happy that it creates like this space where they're not achieving it, they're not enough, which also creates feelings of suicide, which I find interesting. It's like some interesting stat. I don't have the number, but it's an interesting thought about that. So Huga, what is that? This is a Danish or Norwegian word that describes a mood of coziness, comfort, with the feelings of wellness and contentment. In the Nordic countries, this is a lifestyle. This is not like, hey, I'm going to do this one time, I feel good and it's all good. This is something that how they live. And this is something that over time since I started trying to operate out of a more work life blend space, this is actually something that I've been trying to implement on my own, kind of like in my own space. And we'll kind of go into detail about what that looks like here in a second. The good thing about Hygge is that naturally encourages mindfulness, presence, safety, self care, and social supports. Like all the things we just talked about, it naturally encourages that. If you want to get more detail about this, and I'll go into like what is the manifesto, but if you want to get more details, the book is called The Little Book of Hygge. It's like the Danish, it's like the describes the practice of Danish art of coziness. It's by I think Malik Wiegand or Wiking, and he is actually the CEO of the Happiness Research Institute in Denmark. So he's done a lot of kind of studies around that. So, what is the idea of what Hygge is? You can see where there are these different categories. And in the manifesto, it describes in detail about these different areas. So, just a brief rundown. Atmosphere is like your lights. Like, what is the mood lighting in your physical space? Presence is, again, being present, being here, being now, not somewhere else, but here. Pleasure describes like what kind of foods are you eating? Because they're a cold country, they focus a lot on warm drinks. Hello, Alicia, for your coffee. Chocolates, candies, pastries. It's like what are the cozy things that you can kind of bring into your space? Equality. This is the safe space. They create like your space should be a safe space. And in theory, all of our counseling offices should be a safe space. This is also the idea of we over me. The next one is gratitude. So it's being grateful, taking it in, being, just in that space of appreciation and gratitude. Harmony. This is not a competition. We're not in a marathon. This is a slow pace. This is like ebbs and flows. We're just kind of moving along and coasting. Comfort is getting cozy, getting comfortable. It's the textures and the nature. This is the one I really like because this is where you can bring in all the pillows and the blankets and like just the cozy things, the fuzzy socks and just like all that stuff. Like that's where you can bring that in. Truce, meaning no drama. Do I need to explain that one? Just don't have no drama. Just don't. Togetherness. So this one is like building relationships and having positive narratives and just creating the community because that's also your shelter as well, your tribe, your community, and you're just like putting it all together. And so if you read this book, they go and they describe like how shops will shut down at a certain time of night, or you can just drop in and have like, it's like that coffee shop with that mood cozy vibe that you really like. It's like that is the whole town, the whole like just lifestyle that they have there. Like if it wasn't that cold, I probably would live there just for the lifestyle. And they actually have really good healthcare. I will say that too. So, what can what can we kind of take away from all of this? Um One is let's look at what are some multicultural perspectives around work-life blend because it's definitely can look different for everyone. Yes, it can be essential, but we also have to embrace that there are the differences. So considering like cultural values and beliefs that just shapes an individual's approach to work and to their personal life may dictate how they can actually blend. Because in some cultures, work may take precedent over everything else, no matter what, even family, friends, community, that is their top priority. And then you have others where, you know, personal life takes precedent. Again, our Nordic countries are really good for that. You should see some of their like laws around work and maternity leave that explains it all. The other piece here is that we should recognize the unique challenges that are faced in some communities, like, people of color and LBGT and, people with disabilities, just because there may be some other challenges that they actually have to be able to create the space, and for everyone to feel that they are valued and respected. So keep that in mind. So, one thing that I have learned about work life blend, it really is truly a mindset, nothing else. It's like once you make the shift in your mind, you find your community to help support you and the changes that you're making. It helps you stay accountable and it helps you keep aligned with your values. So remember that it's not achieving perfect balance, but just it's about embracing again the messy part of life, finding your harmony and living kind of like in your authentic space, your authentic life. I want y'all to be the best version of yourself as you kind of move towards a work life blend. So, here are a couple books that I have for you guys that talk about some of the just some of the things that I've kind of brought up today. And the first one on the list, Balance is BS, and and how we can have a work-life blend. So this one is a pretty interesting book because it also has like categories where, what I was telling you guys, make your list and all your buckets. This is kind of sort of like a workbook as you explain it because it can help you identify like what are some other spaces that you can create that blended life. The why we can't sleep is a good one to explain for us Generation X babies, like why we have trouble maybe trying to create a blended life. But here are some just a couple of good books that I like that kind of foster this idea. So I am going to take a quick minute and I appreciate y'all and ask if you guys have like any questions, what comes up for you, um, and just kind of seeing where everybody is. Let me know what stood out for you, like what resonated with you. Just what do you have? Nothing. Let's see. I'm trying to give everybody a minute to kind of tap in there, type in there, like what's kind of resonating for them, kind of what stood out. Have you guys heard this before? Is this something totally new to you? Trying to get some sips of my coffee in because I need to finish that. All right. Well, I hope that you guys did find this helpful and that you guys take away something from this and that you start finding ways to kind of incorporate in this life in your life, just because I've seen so many positive changes when I started trying to do this. And it's, again, it's not perfect. It's not um anything that I it's not something that I do every day on a daily basis, but when I feel the pieces in my life, this has been a go-to place for me. So, yes, great, great. So Stephanie says it was a good workshop. Thank you. And that this is a new concept. Yeah, this is again something we do not talk about at all in our space or in the United States. So I'll encourage that. Let's see. Can they create a class in grad school about this? I wish they have known about how balance is going to hit you during your LPC hood, associate hood. Yes, I wish they would. I think that's part of the reason why I started teaching is because there are a lot of gaps in grad school and you're coming out and it's like, yes, they equipped you and they gave you the pieces to the puzzle, but they didn't give you all the tools in the toolbox. They just didn't do that. So that's kind of why I'm learning to step in that space. So maybe I can create a class on that. I don't know. All right. All right. Thank you, Angela. Thank you. Yes. Yes. So if you guys don't have any questions, I really appreciate your time and you guys make sure you fill out the form so you can get credit for your CEU. And I hope you guys have a great, amazing day. Bye for now.